today I've got the one and only Carmia Weideman. Feel free to introduce yourself and feel free to do whatever you want.
Okay. No, you don't want that. So first of all, hi. Thank you so much for having me. And it's an honor for you to ask me to be here with you. So thank you. So I am Carmia. I currently live in the United States, but I'm originally from South Africa. And not recently, but about 6 months ago, I would say, I found the Floxies community. No, actually a year ago, I found the Floxies community after the no code conf. I found Floxies and I was amazed and super intimidated. So I was like, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. So that's what I did. So I've just been learning ever since. And that's where I'm meeting everyone and they're becoming super friends to me and just love Floxies anyways. So I'm going to share my screen real quick.
We've been talking about Floxies like in every session. It's like inevitable.
You know what we need? We need sponsored by Floxies at the bottom there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mention that to the boss.
The boss. All right, so my slides. Okay, so that was the intro. So we already did that. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be a translator. So I was still super into languages. I love learning new cultures. I love I already said that, languages, that's how much I love it. So I started that and I realized I need more. So I somehow convinced my mom to drop out of university and go to a community college and do graphic design. So at that time, it was multimedia design. And we did everything from Flash. We did our animations in Flash, which hopefully it needs to disappear. Flash is the worst program. Okay. So we even did 3D Studio Max, which crashed everyone's computers. I mentioned that recently. So just art, drawing with charcoal, and it was awesome. So I did that, got my first job at an agency. I had to leave that job to go to a different agency closer to my home because the traffic was just terrible. So
and you are always doing graphic design, right? What type of projects?
Yes. So the first job at the agency was a junior graphic design because that was my entry, how I came in. So I did the crap work, like deep etching images and cleaning up images and all of that stuff. Then when I moved agencies, I went to an agency that worked for publishers, and I did layout, which is my favorite thing in the world, is book layouts and print design. No web design for that time. At that time, ebooks just started coming out. So we dabbled a bit in EPUBs and all of that stuff. It was the start, I feel, of digital, books going from print to digital. And I still love print. So with going over to my Webflow, my images are always 10 megabytes. And I'm like, no, this is not print. We have to remember, let's keep our images small. So that was a learning curve. Anyone coming from print to web, I mean, it's obvious, but those images, it's very hard to lose the quality in your images, because coming from print. So anyways, so I worked there and then moved to the United States. And I didn't work for a while because I was raising my children. And then I finally decided, okay, now I'm going to get a job again. And I got into a law firm and into the marketing department. And I was just an marketing assistant. And I just worked my way up with working really hard, all hours. And then they were like, wow, you actually have something to offer. Not in a bad way, in a good way. And I was like, yes, let me do all your design. So that's how it all started.
It's amazing. Okay, so like pivoting has been like the main theme of your career.
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Yes. I was willing to take any job because I just wanted to prove myself. I had to prove, listen, I know what I'm doing. Let me do your print stuff, you know? So to fast forward a little bit, we've migrated almost all of their WordPress sites over to Webflow. That was one of our biggest projects to date.
And it's also one of the most difficult projects actually to handle. So apart from accessibility, obviously, but it is also from an SEO perspective, which sometimes overlaps with accessibility. But that is it. So it's not just the build, but how you manage all the links transitions from one project, from one platform to another.
There's so many things that goes into that. It's so complex because it all starts with knowing what pages you have, you know, and if you didn't do that admin on that, your users are gonna run into errors and they're not gonna come back.
So you need to know web design, development, SEO, and obviously accessibility is present all the time. And some project management skills, I guess, also.
Yes, above all of the project management skills. So,
and good for you.
Yeah, and you always think, oh, I can do this. Give me one day. I'll switch this website over for you. And then you're at your 4-month point and they're like, when is it ready? And you're like, I don't know. We are not ready. So it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. Always.
Okay, so now I think I got a more clear picture. And in this transition, this project, did you also have to redesign some parts of the site, I guess? Okay, so that's where your interest with UX, I guess, started?
Yes. So our previous sites, they were working. We got clients, but it was atrocious to look at, first of all. From my design point, I was like, I cannot work with maroon. Okay, we're not doing maroon for this. So that was my first instinct, was the design part. And then the second part is like, the buttons don't work. Where are these links? You know, so then that part came in. And then the kind of, not the last part of it, but we need to get more clients. What's the purpose of redoing a website if you're not going to make more money? So then comes the SEO. People need to find us, you know? So it's all a beautiful circle. And that's why I put myself in a circle there, because just as I say, jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than the master of one. So that's why I am in a circle, just because you have to take it from start to finish, all the way finished. So that's just something on that.
Yeah, but unless you're T-shaped like yourself,
or that.
That's like the unicorn. But did you also get personally passionate about UX during this project, but in general also?
Yeah, so I think the next slide is appropriate. So as I said, I wanted to move up and up. I didn't want to stay an assistant to someone, you know. I want to take a project from start to finish. So Google, I saw on Google that they're coming out with this UX, UI, or I think it was actually UX certificate on Google.
The course.
Yes. So I was like, let's do this. I want to learn more. I want to be better. I want to make more money for the client. So that's what I did. I signed up for that. And I didn't really know much about UX because I feel like it's only not recently, a couple of years, it started blowing up, you know? So I was like, I need to know more, let me learn. So I enrolled in that and I realized that it's quite different from what I thought it was and what I studied. So I just...
How different?
So here's an example. So design, I feel like there's only a couple of things to hit. It has to visually be good. Okay, for me, I love colors. I just want something to explode. That I want to look at it and I want to feel an emotion, right? But for UX and UI, it's so much deeper. There's so many routes to make the product, you know, and I feel like the weight is more of that than just designing.
So it's a different line of thinking.
I think so. It's a much more, the line, everything needs to connect, you know, versus let me just design something and someone just takes that. Yes, they all go together. Design goes together with the UX side, but just deeper roots, I would say.
Did you feel a bit that we're working within constraints, or were you just okay?
Yes,
and
definitely.
How did you manage these constraints? How did you go through that?
I'm still trying to manage it. So for instance, I will make something, and we've actually spoken about this, a hero image on a website. So you have your beautiful hero, you have a picture, and you put your opacity or a color block over it, and you change the opacity a little bit, and you put your title on top of that, your H1. And you're like, no one can read that, but it looks fantastic, you know? So
yeah, it's like half of the websites out there.
Yeah, that's me. I will make this thing and I'd be like, I can read it. Maybe other people can read it. So I run into that and I know that is wrong. So then I go, okay, fine. I'll make the opacity more. I'll change this, you know, so there's definitely constraints. And that is my biggest, that example just speaks to everything, I feel.
Yeah,
because
okay. With a sad voice.
So sad. Because I think, no, this is gonna work, but it doesn't every time. So that's my example that I stick by.
Which is the best example, because that's where most of the web designers or developers fail most of the time. And it's also the first thing that you notice, which is something that you learn through time. It's not something that you get immediately.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing, is how much I have grown, knowing that, listen, all your designs does not work. And I feel so good saying that, because as a designer, sometimes you're very sensitive. You look at your stuff and people go, and you're like, well, you suck. You don't know anything. This is fantastic, you know? So me saying that I know it doesn't work just shows how much I've matured. And I like that. I like that I now know better, you know? So.
Wow. No, this reminds me of something that we mentioned last time with Hillary, because we were talking about the fact that sometimes accessibility seems so obvious, accessibility principles, but why there is this resistance sometimes from designers or design teams. And she said something smart, that it's most of the time it's people make everything about them, but it's not about you as a designer, artist, creative, whatever. It's about the user, the people, actually, because sometimes the word user, it's like sounds like artificial, which is like disconnected from reality. True. Actually, it's people at the end of the day. So you have to think about them instead of just showing something in your portfolio.
Yeah, and that's very, very true. The one thing I've been told multiple times is, you are not your work.
Oh.
And you not.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah. So it's true. You are not your work, because I feel so embarrassed if I did something the way a client told me to do, and I'm like, please don't tell anyone I did this, you know? So you are not your work. And also, you are not your audience. That is the most important thing, Jeff. You're not the audience. You're trying to make money for your client, you know? So you have, that's where UX comes in. All the research that goes before the product, you know? And that's what was hard for me, because yes, design has research a little bit. You're checking things out and stuff, but UX goes so much deeper, because for that product, you have already done multiple steps, the testing and all of the things, you know? So that's, it goes back to your question.
Yeah, and as you were saying this, and yeah, I was thinking that everything needs to be balanced, because like business people say that customers are not always right when they express what they need, what they might desire, because sometimes it might not be achievable or realistic, or it might not make sense from a business perspective. So research is good, but you also need to be able to interpret it and use your own common sense, knowledge, and experience in order to produce something that makes sense.
Yeah, I like the word experience with that, because yes, listen to the client, but also you have the experience, if you have the right experience, just to guide them. It's also your job to also guide a little bit, listen, this is not going to work.
And also intuition sometimes. The experience is something tricky. It might help you, but it might also condition you. So intuition also comes to play, at least in my case, most of the time. But especially because every project is different from past projects. So yeah, you have experience, but not the exact experience in that exact specific task, for example.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, if you talk maybe the process and the system, sort of, just, that sometimes this fails, just process wise, I would say.
I know you have an interesting slide after this one.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I love this one. I love this slide, but yeah, I'll let you describe it.
Yeah, so this goes back to the transition from design to UX, is what did I have to look at in myself? I had, what I've mentioned, more research, because of just research purpose. No, so I'm going to start over. So more research.
From a graphic designer perspective, you have, I love that it's written here, like with a black and white improved mindset, and then all these circles. So as a graphic designer, these are the necessary new principles, I guess, that you need to learn, relearn in a different way in order to apply them in your work, I guess. How did you experience all of this?
So let me address the black and white thing first. First of all, black is my favorite color. I absolutely love black, okay? Multiple reasons, okay? So, because this is about accessibility, I wanted to make it as clear as possible and just put it on a page, just the text. So I do too much with everything. I overthink, and I add a little leaf, and I add more color. I add some more stuff that no one needs. So I really challenged myself with these slides to make them as simple as possible. So this was also a project for myself, sort of. I was like, okay, Carmia, let's do this. Make the slides easy to read, So it was harder than you think. Okay, so
really, okay, this was like my style for me. So to me, it was very normal. I was expecting something different from you, I have to tell.
Yeah,
I have to be honest. And then when you sent the slides, this would look like I would have done this. It was I love that you mentioned the black and white thing, because you can still be creative with black and white, right?
Sorry, say what?
You can still be creative with black and white, right? Can you?
Absolutely. I mean, so actually there's these reels, I think it's Instagram somewhere, where people are on Procreate, let's say, and they make a color palette, and they turn that whole color palette into black and white. And then they're drawing something, and they're using colors from the black and white color palette. And then at the end, when they're finished with their drawing, they flip it to color, because they don't know what colors they used. And it's mind-blowing. So I want to do a project like that still. But back to black and white, yes, there are so many different shades, opacities, etc., etc. So you can do glorious things, because highlights and contrast and all of that stuff. So okay, back to this. So these things, so more empathy, I feel like that is very important for UX and for accessibility, because putting yourself in someone's shoes, you know. So for instance, from my experience, we work with clients that one of the clients, their clients have money issues. So you have to think, okay, they're coming to your site, they are stressed, they might go to jail, let's say, and where they cannot search your site looking for information. They need a button immediately, help me, you know, because they might not be in the right mind because they're so worried about their current situation, you know, taxes. And that, I feel, is a very good example of empathy, because you have to go into their mindset, sort of, you know, they need help. So you can't have this stuff popping up, ooh, flowers, and ooh, it's so beautiful. No, they need help, and they need to be called, or they need to call to fix this problem, you know. So just go back to user focused again. Just, I'm not using my website, okay, other people are using it. And then if you look at consistency, is so important, because I run into the issue, and I think I address it later in the slides. My buttons and my headings sometimes look the same, and I know that, so I have to work on it.
Your
because
buttons,
I'm like,
and your headings.
Yes. So I will put my heading in a color block, and like,
okay,
heading,
okay,
you know,
okay.
yeah. And I'm like, don't do that. That is going to look like a button, and people are going to try to click on it, and they're going to leave, you know. So make sure your buttons look like buttons, and they're the same color, because not necessarily, but if a button, let's say my button is red, and then you have a white button, people will think, are these buttons doing the same thing? If one is red and one is white, is it also clickable? Is the white one also clickable? I don't know if this is true, but this is what I try to put myself in other people's shoes and think that way. Because I want to make buttons of all colors. Okay, I want to make rainbow buttons. I want to make like buttons that look rainbow like lions. I don't know. I want all of the buttons, but I know, calm down. Use that in projects that's not for other people. Use it for yourself.
How would we manage that color contrast in the rainbow button?
I don't know. That's why you're here.
Okay, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
The accessibility police.
Yes. Like, please help my button. I'm gonna go over what do we have next. So yeah, that's just, here we go. Buttons. So I looked at what I could do better on my websites and my designs. And as I said before, it's tough. You don't want to find fault in your designs, because you're a designer and you studied and everything is right, you know? So you have to, when you're doing that switch, you have to know, listen, forget what you thought, you know? Let's just think a different way, like this. So here I say, I fell into a trap that my headings and my buttons look the same. So it goes back to consistency.
And there's the last one, yeah, the one that I love, the hierarchy.
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like this is the easiest one for your website to make sure that it's accessible. I think
the same, but actually it's also one of the most common issues, one of the most common errors.
Yeah, and I won't, if you look at my websites right now, it's not going to be perfect, but I know that that's what I need to do. But sometimes you're so busy and you're like, oh, let me just get this page out. Meantime, you have 2 H1s on there and an H6, and you're like, why is Google not giving me 100% on the lighthouse, you know?
I love that slide where you were displaying all the UX principles. We mentioned a bit of accessibility here, but those are basically UX principles, and accessibility is not something separated from the UX and from usability. From a design perspective, as a designer, not as a developer, you don't have to learn anything new in theory when it comes to accessibility. You just need to be more mindful.
Yes, That's what we said, improved mindset.
Yeah.
That's just, you're not wrong. You didn't learn the wrong things. Just give it a little shift, you know, improve it a little bit.
You beautifully covered this by going through all the UX principles. And this is another one, the most important one.
Yeah, so this is just what we talked about in earlier, what I tried to explain, the differences, how much more complex the UX design is versus just visual, you know. So this is just a short little, or a small little representation of how it's different, just so much more complex, because I'm trying to grow and mature. So yes, that the center is different, where graphic design is part of that, but center is UX.
You went through your UX journey, but more in specific, how did you actually got familiar with accessibility as a concept? And was it something that you automatically decided to include it in your process, or is it something that you were a bit hesitant at the beginning and slowly implemented it in your work? Or
I think,
how's your approach now?
Okay, so I think more importantly, so there's multiple things. So you have to stay on top of trends. I'm not saying accessibility is a trend. I'm saying it started popping up in the news. Okay, so when you're reading, when you're going on Twitter, you're on LinkedIn, or everywhere you are.
In SEO terms, it is a trend because it is trending on Google more. So
hopefully it's here to stay. But so
we're here for it. Definitely.
Yes. So I started seeing it, you know, and I was like, what is this? And I was doing, as I've mentioned before, I run my websites and my pages through the Google Lighthouse. I don't know if that's the correct term for it, but then I score myself and I say, what am I doing wrong? I want Google to show my pages in the search results. I want to be found, but if Google is not liking what I'm showing it, it's not going to show my stuff, you know? So I think that's where I first kind of started seeing, listen, you need to change some things.
And you have it in your next slide, right? The
yes, there it is. Yes.
And it's also like a personal thing that you want to see this all green.
Yes, it's a game.
You hate that orange there.
Yeah. It's a game. I would be just sitting by myself in my pajamas, like eating sweets, and I would score my page and I would go, yes, you know,
or damn it, not yet.
Yes, it's self-validation, and you're like, I can do my job, you know. So definitely it's a game. It's absolutely a game, and I love it.
I think most web designers and web developers, I think most of them saw for the first time accessibility as a thing when they were running the Google Lighthouse tests, the performance tests. So that is a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, even if you just do all the basic stuff to score 100 on Google, that is also, at least you did that.
Yes, and just to be clear, I don't think this is my page, okay? Performance 25, I don't think that's mine, by the way. No, I think it's a Google
you just use it as a representation of a bad Lighthouse performance, and
it's not mine. So, and then secondly, my daughter wears hearing aids. So I started thinking, okay, how do people with disabilities, how do they experience things, you know? So that's also why I started looking into it more. Every single TV and every single streaming platform in my house has captions. So sometimes when I watch stand-up comedy, I turn it off because I don't want to read the joke before the person says it, you know? So then I turn it off. But so yes, that is when I've had multiple meetings at school about my daughter. They always say, turn on the captions. It does wonders. And then my son, who is 4 years younger, since we always did captions, he is a reading wizard. Like, he's 9 and he can probably read the, I wanted to say the Bible, but like a massive book, you know? So, and that is why, it's because of those captions.
There you see.
Hearing and seeing at the same time, just, yeah, amazing. So
yeah, there are many technologies that have been invented for people with disabilities, but then became mainstream. And especially, and also for people who are not native speaker.
Yeah.
That is, sometimes it is a necessity, especially when there's a very strong British accent.
Yes, or a French one. French accent is really hard for me to understand sometimes.
Yeah, I don't understand any accents in French, so that's yeah, that's the same for me too, I guess.
It's funny.
Yeah, now we're talking. Okay, go on.
Go on.
No, I like the previous slide.
This one?
This one, yeah, please tell me more.
I don't know where I was when I wrote this. Must have been in a good place.
Okay.
So I think it's very important to look at the end result. Why are we doing this? Why are we spending so much time learning more things? Just why, you know? And you have to recognize that it is, fortunately and unfortunately, you would like to make your client more money, because that's why I'm doing my job. I would like to make my clients more money. So better usability.
And you're not just working in producing an artwork.
Yeah, right. And that's what I run into so many times is I make my art for what? I hide it in a file. Why am I doing that? Yes, I'm doing it for me, but what would be cool is if someone was buying that and using it, you know? So where I'm making more money, because why am I making all these artworks?
And you create value.
Yeah. So it's important to know what your end result is. So I think it all comes down to that.
Yeah. And what creates value for your client and your client's clients.
Correct.
You have this this knowledge and skill and power to use colors to create effects and emotions. I was searching through your Dribbble profile.
Yeah.
And there was a sentence there, which is also here on the slide, and I want you to read it or explain it and do whatever you want, but I want you to talk about it. So
yes,
I'm done talking.
So lots of things that I want to say. So first of all, I have this concept in my head that people who create art needs to stick to their style. Okay, so if you look at famous artists and people with lots of followers on Instagram or so, they have a style, and that's what they do, right? So that's how you recognize them. So I really struggled with that because I don't think I have a style. I just go in, I say, okay, now I'm going to do something creative, because with work, I feel like I cannot be that creative. And if I'm by myself and I just want to create something, I feel, oh no, I feel sad because I don't want to make the same style that I did yesterday, you know? So first of all, I struggle with that. So you're saying that you see my creations and feel a certain way is because I want them to pop. I don't want you to just say, okay, this is Carmia's art, blah, blah, blah. I want you to go, whoa, that's interesting. And then you move on, you know? I don't think I make my art to dwell on, like, oh, the bunny died and this is how I feel. You know, some art is like that, but I want mine to just spark, as you say, energy. And I love that you said that.
It just hit me. It just hit me. And I
that's the purpose.
I want to see more of it. I want to see more of it, actually.
So as I said, I hide my things because I just feel like I made it for me and I don't feel that anyone else should see it. But I'm working on that and I'm just putting it out there because I can't hide it. Okay, so to address your sentence on Dribbble, first of all, I'm not active on Dribble right now. So this is old me, but I want to be more active on Dribble because, you know, it's a good platform. So I got my iPad, and at the same time I was learning UX. So I was like, what can I draw on my iPad? And I downloaded these UX elements because I was doing the course and I had it, you know, in my library. And I was like, let me make something crazy only using UX elements. So that's how that idea came about. And as a graphic designer, so I'm going to read the sentence: when a graphic designer wants to break into UX design, but struggles to let go of doing too much. So I was scared people are going to think I'm completely insane to post this, because what is it even, you know? And that's why I said it as a joke, you know, just the emoji, because don't take me serious on this. I'm not being serious, you know? So that's how that idea came about.
Well, I took it very seriously, actually. So that's why I put it in the slide.
It was very funny when I did it, because I tried to constrict myself, because you have the whole Procreate, you know, you can do anything you want. And I was like, no, only use these brushes over here, you know? So I click and I click. Obviously, I drew the little spaceman with super silly, but just clicking, you know, with the different brushes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to post this on Dribble. And it's the fact that you told me about this and you found it, I was like, you know what, it's actually a real thing, because you're overthinking, you're designing too much, but you just want the client or the user to effectively move through your stuff, you know? So I thought it was hilarious.
So you initially set the constraints to yourself and you stick to it.
Yes, because this took like 3 minutes. Like each thing took really quick. And that's back to my art that I do. I say, okay, do it in 5 minutes, because I will sit for hours and say, oh, this is not good, this and that. So I say that 5 minutes, go.
That's what I always say. Constraints, at least for me, make me feel safe and sometimes even more creative. Like you said the timer. That's, I guess, one of the worst constraints.
Yeah, it's horrible.
When it comes to design, it gives you a lot of pressure, but you still got to a result. So constraints can also be beneficial in your work.
Yeah, it can push you to get a good result, you know, with the things that you were given. Let's say time, and let's say budget, you know? So those things are good, because you're going to have clients that's going to tell you do this. So you have to figure out, how am I going to get this result with these constraints?
And time is always a constraint with clients. Like everything needs to be ready yesterday. So
yep. And I found that if you give me a task and I have 2 weeks, I'll do it, but I'll drag a little bit my feet. If it needs to be done tomorrow morning, I deliver the best work that I can do.
Stay up all night, but it's done.
Yeah, and it's brilliant.
What about this beehive?
That beehive is there for
and the search field.
It's, as I say, I was clicking and clicking, and I was like, okay, find a scenario in your head and just do that. So obviously the ship on the water, I was like, okay, ship on water. So draw a little ship, use that. So, okay, little beehive, make a beehive. I just thought of something, a scenario. Okay. And I was like, run with it. I don't know. It's silly.
I'll tell you how I read it.
Okay.
The three of these images, I imagined that you were feeling lost in all three of them. Okay. And like the beehive, like you are feeling in the middle of a beehive, and then there's the search functionality that you are trying to find your way out. I don't know, find something.
Okay, it's good.
that you had lost, or you were lost. I don't know.
No, it's a good interpretation. And something I really like about myself is I'm a problem solver. So I don't think I'm a good drawer, like physically with pen and just drawing something from scratch. But I'm finding a different way to express myself. And if I have to download brushes to create something, then do that. I've learned that it's not a bad thing to admit that you can't do something. Just find a different way to create what you want to create, you know? So I didn't create these brushes, but I like using something that's already there and then making something else with it. So that's what that was.
Which makes sense, and makes sense also when it comes to the UX and accessibility, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Whenever you do something, you need to learn and reuse specific patterns and based on specific principles. And yeah, that of course you can be creative, but without reinventing the wheel. And this is also one of the reasons that I really encourage you to publish your work, because I found myself, I mean, I gave to these images my own interpretation of how I felt sometimes, or at the beginning of my design journey. So that was really, really meaningful to me, although it took you 3 minutes to do this.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at stuff you did a while ago and you're like, what was I doing? And then you think that's actually pretty cool, because in my head I was like, okay, I want a whole class of people and I want everyone to use 3 minutes and use UX elements and create a picture. That's what I saw in my head. I'm like, come on everyone, let's do this, you know? That's what I thought was going to happen. And then only you saw it on Dribble.
From this moment, I'm not going to be the only one. I know you have some other artwork.
Yeah. So let's, what side? Show. This side. So I had to find Figma on my journey. Figma presented itself to me.
As a graphic designer, it was not your first tool, I imagine.
Forcefully was given to me because InDesign and Illustrator was just not the best thing to use at that time for remote work for the team.
Okay, for collaborations.
Yes, because they recently added the feature to collaborate on projects. So very cool, but it wasn't there almost, what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
So, and every time I left my house, I had to make sure I packaged up my files and put it on the drive to where I was going and then finish the rest of my project, you know? So Figma was the obvious choice. So I went into Figma and I just used the tools that were available, the plugins. What is that? There's an ice cream truck. So Image Tracer on Figma. It's a plugin, free plugin. Unsplash, everyone, if you stock photos, you will know Unsplash. And color overlays, I believe that's what it was. So 3 things. And I've actually made videos on how to do this. And a 3-minute to 5-minute video, like, hey, let's do this. So there is no meaning really behind them other than me challenging myself, hey, do something.
Just to keep your creative in you going, right?
Because at work I have to do the best UX and the best SEO and the best of everything, but then I'm home and I say, okay, let's let that energy out, you know? So that's what I did on Figma.
And I know you also have some projects in Webflow.
Yes.
Right, so, where you showcase your projects.
Yes, I might have to share a different screen, so hold on. Oh, do you see my screen now?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so there are.
Okay, now we got into your Webflow projects.
Okay, we're gonna do this.
Because obviously, one thing that we didn't mention is that you are also a UX designer, web designer, and Webflow developer.
Yes, and everything else, work in the yard, cutting the grass, all of that, everything. You just try to do everything.
Yeah, it's, how was that? the jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, circles everything. So I try.
Lots of creative stuff.
Yes.
Let's see your public profile. So,
okay, go to the public.
So
yeah, this is the different one.
we can
So,
see.
yeah, as you can see, nothing crazy, just me trying to express myself using available tools. So I came up with the idea because I'm making some art, just have an ongoing CMS. So make something, throw it in there, and then it just populates, you know? So, because I did see someone one time do that, but it was thousands of items just of art, and it was super cool. So this is just the start of one of the projects that I just throw some art in.
Okay, I love the name.
Oh, so this is me one Friday night sitting on the couch, drinking some wine and just saying, oh, I'm paying for Webflow. Why don't I just make silly things on Webflow if I'm already paying for it, you know, for the unlimited project, you know, because you run into that issue. You have 2 projects, now you pay.
Makes sense.
I was like, let me do stuff with it. So
what is this project that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, so this is just one where it has no.
Can we see the link? I think you have the link open.
So
right.
Where do I go down?
Is it the visual site?
You want the live site?
Okay.
So it's up here. I can send you the link. So visualsite.webflow.io. That is that link. So yeah. So I mean, I see all the flaws. I see that the frames aren't the same sizes, but as I said, this is a speed project where you're making something, you're throwing it into your CMS. It is not supposed to.
But I don't think they have to be the same, right? I mean, this is like an imperfect grid.
Yeah.
This is artwork. They don't have to be all the same.
Right.
It's not a blog page, so.
It's true. So it's just, I recently started it, so it's not complete and it's never going to be complete, but it's just something fun to challenge yourself. Just something simple.
That's the beauty of Webflow also, because once you have your images ready, and you can put up a page, even a simple page, but it looks beautiful actually.
Yeah, so then I have, if you want me to go over to the next project, have an actual Webflow site that I put a little bit more thought into it. And do not look at my image sizes even, because I was still working with it. But someone needed something real quick and I was like, okay, let me quickly get a portfolio out or something. So it just taking my own art again, just putting up some, what do you call the blending modes and the filters over it to make it look like.
This speaks of Carmia actually. Yeah, when I see this, I immediately think of you.
Yeah, so and the background, I just took a vector image, and inside the vector image, I just placed an Unsplash image. So this is all speed. It's all speed, this.
Okay, it recalls me the beehive from before.
There we go. Nice.
So everything is connected, even without doing it on purpose.
Yeah. So just to follow me, there's a LinkedIn, there's my Webflow, and then my Instagram linked to that. And then just some tabs of some things that I've done. So there's still some web design aspects.
So here you have web design, illustrations, digital graphic design.
Yes.
The work you've done for your company, and then the companies you work for.
A couple of ones, as you can see, something's repeating over here. So again, I just had to get this out, not using it.
And marketing.
Yeah, so that's just a couple of things. We do lots of social, we do lots of events, and then lots of websites. So
and they're all targeted to law firms, right? Professional services.
Yes and no. The middle one is a different tax, but professional. The professional industry.
Yeah.
Okay,
so basically, this is your portfolio that we can find in Webflow.
Yeah. And to be honest, I have multiple portfolios because it depends on how I'm feeling. And I'm like, oh, that one's crap. So then I move on to a new portfolio because I'm a template hoarder as well. So just don't look over here.
It makes sense because as you evolve as a professional, like you switched from graphic design to print design, and then graphic again, UX, web design, now webflow development. So there are so many things that maybe putting everything together might even be confusing and might even make sense. And it depends on what you want to market. How do you want to market yourself at a specific time and to specific potential clients? So it makes sense to have multiple.
It does to me because I just want to explore. But that's why this comes back to putting constraints on yourself. Don't have 5 portfolios. Put that thing on you that says no, don't do that, but
balance.
Have that balance. But that's why I need to do that, because I will just keep on going, so I need someone to say stop it, just put this stuff
me anytime.
So yeah, and then there's nothing really to it. This is my favorite quote in the whole wide world. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? I heard that somewhere lots of years ago, and it stuck with me in my brain, front, back, sides.
Yeah, this cuts through, actually.
It's when someone tells me, oh, I just did this quick and it was not good. I'm like, so now we have to do it over, Yeah. Where's the time? Where's the resources to do it over? So I love that. If you can apply that personal and professional, I believe that you will be a more happier, effective person.
This is also relevant when it comes to accessibility, right? When clients do not have the budget, for example, or they're not familiar, or even if they are familiar, they might not consider it as something important, relevant for their current project. But you as a professional, you want to produce something that is obviously accessible. So at least the basic stuff, the things that will be highlighted in the Google Lighthouse test, for example, that should be a part of your work. So instead of considering the color contrast issue, something that, well, we might take it later, if it is already included in your process, it will already be included also in the pricing.
Yeah, that's great.
Finally,
that's a great way to think of it. Yeah, because it all comes together. It's not separate things. Yeah, we have to do it from the ground up. So yeah.
And accessibility is like such a complex world, which is most accessibility professionals are web developers, and the design aspect, they just do the testing. In reality, accessibility starts with content and then with design. And if you tackle all of the content and color and design issues before you get into development, then everything could be much easier.
It's really, and it's the process, like we said earlier, is you might have the experience of the process because you've done it multiple times to help guide your client. Listen, we need to include the research or whatever and the accessibility here and not here, because we don't have time to do it over, and you don't have the money for it. So
it's like responsive websites. I mean, there was a time a few years ago when building a responsive website was like an additional feature.
Yeah.
But now it's like, when I see agencies that market that we build a responsive website as something exceptional, or something that like you assume that there are agencies that do not do that.
Yeah.
But it's not true anymore, hopefully. I mean, I guess it's not true anymore.
Back in the day when you opened a website on a cell phone, it was literally the website from the desktop shrunk down and you had to find the stuff.
I mean, we say back in the day, but not That
Couple
long ago. Yeah, probably.
And that's why Webflow, I love Webflow because of the you can change your whole mobile layout, you know, versus the desktop. It just blows my mind and I love it.
Yeah, especially when you, as a designer, when you get to Webflow as a designer, it's really mindful.
Yeah, it is, because you can do anything. The potential is insane. So just, you always need your CTAs. You need very.
Is it you at the bottom? Is that you?
That is me, yes.
Yeah, I recognize you.
I have so many things.
And you have a hat.
I love hats, yes. If you could see my hat collection, it's there by the front door. I'll send you a picture. There's so many hats.
Okay. Yeah, I need some inspiration. I'm gonna get one with the ally word here. Hopefully there's no trademark with that, hopefully. But
well, do it right now. Go.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. So this is your portfolio that everyone can find in Webflow, and I will also publish this link to in the video description.
As I say, I have so many things to show, and I should just share them all, put them out there. But I like the closing slide is just make sure it's intuitive, because
do you have it here?
Yeah. Am I I'm sharing the different screen. Let me see.
Okay.
Here we go.
I'd love to see it.
There we go. So just that's, I think, the last thing that I will say is just make sure it's that intuitive, because your user and your audience, if you think it's intuitive and you can navigate through, I'm sure that they will feel the same way. Perhaps if you apply all of those improved mindsets, the empathy, the sympathy, the end result, and it's intuitive, I think you'll be fine.
Thank you so much, Carmia. And I am so happy for this session today, and that you agreed to do this accessibility hour with me, and that you spent so much time actually today with me and preparing also the slides. So I'm really grateful and thankful for your presence here today.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll see you at the Floxies.
We're sponsored by Floxies. There we go.
Yeah, told you we'll talk to the boss about that. All right.
So much.
This was so good. Thank you, Carmia. Thank you so much.